Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call. Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. I am Melissa Deely, your host, and I am here with Zeina Kronfol. Welcome, Zeina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you here today, and I just want to introduce you to the audience, Zeina. Zeina is an ICF certified holistic life, career, and executive coach and consultant. And with over 12 years in cross-functional leadership in international product marketing, brand strategy, and project management, Zeina knew from the beginning of her professional career that she was destined to help people, but she had no idea how. Now, listeners might be wondering, what does this have to do with health? Well, that's where, your health is impacted by all aspects of your life, and your work, your career impacts your stress levels, which impacts your health. And so these are all things we're going to be diving into today with Zeina. So thanks for your time, Zeina. I'm excited for this conversation, and I'd love you to just start out by sharing how you got into this.
Yeah. So I've always been a very ambitious person, kind of always knew what I wanted to get out of life, especially when it came to my profession. And went after it. And it was never really something that I struggled with. I just kind of always knew. But when I actually started my professional career right after grad school, I quickly kind of realized, some of the things that I thought I wanted weren't really as they seemed, right? Like we have this idea of, maybe a spouse, kids, like this picturesque idea in our mind. And I saw the people that had that. And it just didn't play out like I'd wanted it to, really. It didn't look like, something was wrong with that picture. And I kind of set a glass ceiling for myself, because of that. And essentially the reason I got into this coaching space is I always knew that I wanted to help people in some capacity. And, you can convince yourself to a certain extent and based on your profession that you're helping people. And I did my best with that in my marketing career. But you get to a point where you kind of realize like this isn't enough. I need to be doing more. And so really I went into this space, to help people kind of self-realize and help them get the clarity on what it was, or what it is that they're meant to be doing. And I think to your point, it started showing up like the misalignment with my life and my career really started manifesting itself in my body and in my health. And so that was a pretty big wake-up call for me, for sure.
Well, and I love that you recognize that and you listen to that, right? And that you chose to make changes about that, because I often will hear people who, their health isn't great. And when you recommend to them some of the steps that they need to be taking to improve their health, which could include a career change, because it's the career that's causing all of the stress, which is the root cause of the health issues, there's so much reluctance and fear in around changing that career. Because it is scary, how will I pay my bills if I give up this job that's causing me all of this stress? My flip side to that is, how will you show up in your career if you let your health decline to the point where you can't function, right? But they haven't been there yet. They might have been in a place of having had difficulty before paying bills. And so that fear comes up first. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? A lot of us, just human nature, unfortunately, need to learn from experience. So it's not until we get to that point of almost no return of extreme burnout do we then realize, okay, I can't do that anymore. Instead of kind of proactively taking measures to ensure that if we're starting to operate under baseline, that we're reassessing and re-leveling, like kind of leveling out. But typically we tend to function in extremes. It's either I'm okay and then I'm rock bottom and then I have to work my way back up. And that's kind of how we bounce back. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I can't say that I realized it and it instantly clicked. I mean, for me, it was a 12-year process. And even knowing, my struggle, I think how it showed up for me was insomnia. It was chronic insomnia. And I thought, I have this because I'm very unhappy at this particular job. And so I thought if I made the changes, left that particular job with that company, then all my problems will be solved. Well, I realized even though I started doing more of exactly what I wanted to be doing within the corporate space and marketing, I was at the height of my career doing my dream job. When I realized that I still was suffering from the insomnia, that was kind of oh my, like now there's clearly something much deeper than that, And as you start trying to seek out different, like different types of doctors and how can what is the root cause of this problem, right? Thinking it's some disease or something that they'll be able to solve. And when all of these traditional doctors I went to couldn't solve that, that's when I really had to realize like, okay, it's not whatever you think it is, and I saw the sleep doctor and like every single type of professional I could possibly see. It wasn't until I really did a holistic internal look and started challenging myself that way, seeking alternative routes of holistic ways of treating things like acupuncture, that was really what changed the game for me. Doing these external changes kind of gave me a little bit of results, but ultimately I had to go within. And that's where the change really, really started happening.
And I love that you share that because it's tied in with all of the work that I do. I work with the physical body, but I also work with the mental and the emotional body. And I partner with people who work with the spiritual body because it is going into that emotional body and that mental body where we need to go for some of the deeper healing to then happen in the physical body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, even when I work with people and I give them, protocols, depending on where they're at on their health journey, if it's gone on for a long time, it takes longer for that healing to happen. Right. And then we have to go deeper and deeper. And I might make protocol recommendations, supplement recommendations, and they're not, the idea isn't to rely on them forever. Right? They might help and they will help, but it isn't to rely on them forever. It is to also continue to do that deeper work because that's where the true healing happens. And we aren't meant to suffer. So when we are in that place of suffering, it's about what you did, getting curious to why, what else is going on here. So I love that you did that and you kept looking for, more and more resources to help yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually came back to, I have to go inside and figure out where the misalignment is.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love that. So then from that place, I presume you left that job in marketing, and that's when you started to move into the coaching world. And so take me on that journey.
Yeah. So it wasn't just one job. It was several jobs.
Okay.
Just for full transparency. And I think it's important for people to realize that like, it's not, we have these intuitive feelings. Like I wasn't sleeping. I developed a polyp in my vocal cord, actually both at this same job. And you kind of just keep moving, like pushing forward, like, oh, it's fine. Like, it's not that big of a deal. I'll figure it out. Right. Like,
or it'll go away. I just have to keep pushing through and be stronger or be tougher. It'll get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not to say that I wasn't doing anything. I was trying to make changes, but again, they were all external. So I just, the reason I point this out is because I think it's important for people to understand and be compassionate with themselves if it is a process, and you have to be ready and willing and open and honest with yourself. Like, am I truly ready for change? Because change is like, things will happen when you start taking those steps and really realizing like, okay, I'm absolutely done with this. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to sleep, to whatever you're dealing with. You have to understand that it's going to shift not only that area of your life, but other areas in your life as well. So just for full transparency, it wasn't like I kind of, a lot of times people say, I just woke up one day and then it just hit me. Like, that can happen sometimes with healing, but it also can be a long process. And the reason I like sharing this is because you don't need to get to the point that I did in order to start making changes. So I did it alongside my marketing career, realizing that what I was doing just wasn't enough. So I wanted to, better myself and learn about coaching and see how I could bring that into different organizational environments and see how I could do what I was familiar with and what I loved, and still had that spark every now and then, but also being able to add to my experience, help not only myself, but help other people. And, due to the environment that I was in, that being able to coach within that environment and that organization wasn't a possibility. So I knew I would have to do that elsewhere. I did not at all anticipate being an entrepreneur and doing it for myself. In fact, even when I'd started my coach training, I didn't even read the materials on entrepreneurship. I was that like far away from it. So that's also its own journey in and of itself, becoming an entrepreneur and unlearning everything that society and all these people and experiences tell you from the corporate world, and also realizing how, strong my intuition was the whole time and how much I didn't listen to it. I realized all the things that I truly value, like freedom, flexibility, noticing change and wanting to act on it, were not things that I was able to execute in many of the environments that I was in. So being able to move in, I quickly realized like, oh, this is actually why people work for themselves, because they are able to do this. And doing that transition, not only from, switching the fields that I was in from marketing to coaching, but also switching into corporate, working for other people, to working for myself, allowed me to really lean into that like healing therapeutic space. And as I work with my own clients, I'm constantly learning from their experiences. Sometimes they bring things to me that I've been challenged with before in the past. So it's a constant growth and healing process, which is so beautiful. I mean, I remember as I started to dive into this work when I was in corporate, and I realized how much I was learning and how much I was shedding and changing. It was very hard for me to go back into these environments where other people didn't have the awarenesses or weren't really willing to change, and feel like I had to then shrink myself to be at that level. And it's not to say at all like anyone is better or above or anything like that. But when you start growing and listening to your intuition and feeling into those feelings and knowing like I am sick, and really trusting what you're telling your doctors or the people that you're working with, like only you know what's best for you. So if you know that there's something that's off, you have to really do what it takes in order to see that through, to get the help that you need. Even if people tell you this, I had people tell me, you're just never going to sleep regular in your life. And I was, I don't know, 24 maybe when they told me this. And I was like, okay, I absolutely rejecting that. Like I can't, I refuse to believe that I will be, be dependent on these heavy sedative drugs for the rest of my life. I can't live my life like that. So, you're the one who's in the driver's seat and can make those decisions. Do I listen to someone who, no disrespect, they're definitely an expert, but maybe I'm an I can't even say the word.
Anomaly.
It's been a long day, but maybe I'm the outlier, and that's, my contribution to this field. So really, just because people tell you you can't, you won't, this and that, like, in and of yourself, and let that voice and that feeling inside, honor it and give it the space and let it shine, because you are in the driver's seat of your life.
I love all of that. And you've touched on so many things there that I resonate with because I too used to be in the corporate world. And so I've been through that, transition from corporate world to entrepreneur. And I went back to school and did all of my learning as well. And I'm like paying for specific courses at school, but so much of the learning was, as you were saying, the unlearning of what you've learned in the corporate world in order to then step out as an entrepreneur. And then, paying for coaching in order to learn how to set up my business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I really resonate with all of that, as well as what I love to tell my clients is you are your own best doctor. You have lived in your body your entire life, so you know it better than anyone.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, tap into that intuition. And if something's wrong and you're going to the doctor and they're telling you there's nothing wrong with you based on the lab tests that they run, that don't give up. Keep searching because you know your body. And just because the lab tests show there's nothing wrong doesn't mean that your body isn't talking to you. And symptoms are the way the body talks to us. It's trying
Yeah.
to ask us to do something differently. And as you said earlier, too, society has us normalize it. And we write off these symptoms as aging or genetics or seasonal allergies and do nothing and try to push through, etc., as opposed to getting curious about them, going, why is this going on? What is happening here? And what can I do about it?
Yeah.
So I love all of that. And, to the audience, when we started out, I read Zeina's bio. It doesn't sound like this is a conversation around health, and yet it is, because all these aspects of our life are so interconnected. And the way we do one thing is the way we do anything, which is why, as you said, as you start to grow, as the shifts start to happen, it happens in more than just one area of your life.
Yeah.
So this has led you to specializing in career transitions for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So just talk to me more about that, because this is a time where so many people are going through career transitions as we're coming out of the pandemic. I now enjoy working from home. I don't want to go back to the job that's now making me have to go back and be in an office, or I no longer enjoy that job, but I don't know what I should be shifting to or how to figure out the next step. So yeah, share a little bit more about how you help people in their career transition.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's very interesting. People are at different phases when it comes to that. They'll come in and they'll tell me, where they want to be, but then they kind of discount that, I would love to, or in an ideal world, I would be doing X or whatever. And it's not that many of these things, they're not far reaching, they're great ideas. They're things that are much more aligned with who they are and how they want to show up. But we tend to kind of intuitively just keep ourselves small and not listen to that intuition. So kind of even going back to my example, I kept thinking, my insomnia is directly correlated to this particular job. Change the job, loved what I was doing, was like the best job that I had in my marketing career, could not be more aligned. Still had the insomnia, which to me was then a clear indicator of, okay, there's a totally different direction that we need to be going here. Like there's still work to be done. Maybe, I don't even know that I would say my insomnia changed even like the slightest bit. It wasn't until I actually fully left that I, miraculously started sleeping, because I was doing things like I was working 10 times more, starting your own business, but I was doing things that really fed my soul, that really lit me up. So even when I was working, doing a side hustle, when I was in the corporate world, I still found myself doing these things to start my business and grow my business because it didn't feel like work. So as we're starting to have those intuitive feelings of, okay, I'm supposed to go back to the office, I don't want to do that. Or maybe we're laid off and we're trying to reassess what direction we want to go in. Or we just start having those feelings of, I'm so bored, I'm so numb at this job, what is out there for me? Is to really, like you'd mentioned earlier, get curious and get playful. Try to think back of, like, a really good starting point is thinking back of your childhood. What are some areas or spaces or things and activities that you used to do that you completely lost track of time? It could be something like drawing or being active. whatever that is, start incorporating that into your daily or at least weekly life to bring a sense of kind of like self-care, calm, because it's something that's really going to ground you while you're in this space of change and transition. And it could potentially even light a spark of, I used to write all the time, or I used to draw, and I really love that. And maybe you're laid off right now, so you can use that as not only a creative outlet, but potentially an opportunity to create some money on the side while you figure out what your next move is. And as you have at least a little bit of income, yeah, it may not supplement your full salary that you just had, but it's something that can at least help you to buy time, like help you pay your bills, in order for you to start thinking and really taking the time that you need to decompress, to de-stress, and work through some of the things that came up in your last job, work through some of the trauma potentially if you left your last job outside of your own terms, and really give yourself the time and space to figure out what it is that you want. Because when we are, we want to make a change, we want to have like a clear picture before we take that leap, right? Because that way we feel safe and secure of, okay, this is 100% what I want to do. But you have to be able to experiment a little bit, like be able to kind of test things out and see, is this truly what I want to be doing? Instead of thinking of it as extremes of either I either stay in my job or I leave to do something completely different. Like if you use myself as an example, I was coaching on top of my job. So I was, safely and securely in a job. And then outside of, my business hours, nights, weekends, super early mornings, because I coach internationally as well, I was coaching. So I had the ability to see, do I enjoy this? Do I want it just to be like a side job, just to have my hand in another bucket, another way to get money? Or is this something that I truly enjoy to the point that I would be open to exploring doing it full-time or even part-time and doing other things on top of that? So really just like we mentioned earlier, getting curious and trying to reassess what it is that lights us up, and how can we, if we don't monetize it, just bring more of it into our experience. So then our 9 to 5 may feel less heavy if it's not completely absorbed with what we want to do, at least for this point in time.
I love that. And I actually intuitively did that myself. And so I was in a 24-year career and loved it. Dream job, traveled a lot. And the last 2 years, though, became very difficult because the previous boss that I had, who I loved, was fired. And then in came a new boss that was very much the fixed mindset boss. That I didn't even live in the same province as this person, but they called me up to tell me that if I wanted to go to the dentist, I had to take vacation in 15-minute increments in order to go. And I'm like, that kind of control and I'm sitting there going, how would you even know if I went to the dentist? But whatever. So just not an easy working relationship. And so I started a side hustle, and it was amazing how much relief I just felt from starting that side hustle, because I knew I'd created an out if I needed an out. Right. And eventually I was outed, which is what I was waiting for. I knew it was going to happen at some point. Big fish bought little fish. I was outed. And then I got my package, which is what I was waiting for after so many years with the company. And then from there, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I still had the side hustle, but I knew that wasn't going to be my full-time thing. And that was okay. But I was open to being guided. And that's where I really started to tap into my intuition and was seeing things happening in my life. And, my 2 daughters ended up having concussions at the same time. And I was helping them heal through that, bringing in nutritional piece to concussion recovery. And I was learning as I was helping support them. And that really is what guided me into health and wellness, because it's where I learned that people need more support on their healing journey. Right.
Yeah.
And other things happened along the way. But when we again get curious and just kind of step back and allow things to happen and really pay attention, that we get the answers of what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And I still look back on that career, love that career. And I realize now that, every part of that career has led me to be able to be the coach that I am today. And I needed to go through that to get where I am at today.
Yeah.
So I love all of that sharing and what you're doing and what you're helping people with, because there's so much need for that in the world today. So tell me, what are some of the biggest challenges that people do face in the midst of change?
I mean, really just that the fear is the biggest thing too, right? You know, everyone, they know what they should be doing, they know they should do something different, but they're truly just paralyzed with fear and fear of the unknown, having that, you know, scarcity mindset that many people struggle with even while they're in safe and secure jobs, right? It's just that fear of, well, how can I, what if, all of these things, because they know what they have, it's their that job, they know they hate it, but they can't guarantee anything on the other side because they haven't started that experimentation process, or maybe they've experimented a little bit but they don't know until they fully kind of float out there, right? So I think the biggest thing is really just realizing, you know, you already know what's on this side, right? You're already going through it, and not sticking with it until you completely burn out. And it's going to take you so long to get back to baseline and even start thriving again and recovering. It's really to just continuously look at ways to optimize and make those little safer changes, as opposed to kind of having to reset and start from the very beginning, like almost learning to walk every single time, right? I think that's the biggest thing to focus on.
I love that. I liken it to the seesaw, right?
Yeah.
You're just a little bit away from center. The adjustment to bring yourself back is a lot less than if you let yourself go all the way out to one end or the other, where, the adjustment to bring yourself back is so
Yeah.
much harder, so much
Yeah.
harder to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I love that. And then who do you typically work with?
I work with a lot of different types of people. I mostly see people kind of in the corporate space who are starting to figure out, like, you know, I've been loyal to this company for years, for instance, and there's one type of person there, I call them like the people who like to stay and play in the sand. They really want to try to make things work, but they're open to doing something else. So we kind of figure out, do you want to stay in this company, or do you want to start making like smaller changes that you're more comfortable with? That's kind of one group of people. Another group of people who come in, they know like hands down they want to make a transition, and it could be transitioning from one industry to another, from finance to marketing or something like that, still within the corporate space, or making, you know, a similar transition to what I did, changing industries and also entering or exiting corporate. And then I also work with a lot of freelancers and some entrepreneurs who have either had that corporate experience and they know what it's like, but now they're trying to navigate on their own. I work with a lot of creative people and people who are truly solopreneurs. And so they no longer have that team or that person or like kind of protector to prevent any conflict. They have to directly deal with their clients, as opposed to kind of having that barrier or manager in between. So just a whole different slew of people that I deal with. But the main thing is ensuring that they are guided and supported throughout this transition process, because otherwise you kind of end up like I was for years, and you look back and you're like, wow, we could have been at this point 12 years ago. We already knew there were so many like clear signs of, this is not right. We need to do something different. We need to pivot. But I never had that support or anyone to talk to about that. So I kept kind of going down that, well, I guess I could just take this other marketing job because I know I can do it. But then it just took me less and less time in each role. And I, essentially got sicker and sicker and spending more time with much worse, much more chronic insomnia. So it's really just kind of, if not now, then when? To what end do you need, why do we need to suffer so much until we genuinely can barely get out of bed because we're so beat down and depressed? Like, do we really have to get to that point in order to make a change? And like you said with the seesaw, like, it's so much easier to make smaller changes, as opposed to think of how much more energy and effort it takes to truly build yourself back up when you're buried so deep in the ground. It takes a lot more effort.
I love everything that you've shared. And again, the correlation between the work that you're doing helping people with their careers and the work that I do coming from the health perspective is so intertwined, right?
Yeah.
Because when we aren't focused on our health, when we aren't focusing on why am I stressed? Why am I unhappy? Why am I fatigued? Why do I have no energy? And we just keep going through, our health continues to decline. And the work that you're doing in helping people navigate that change helps them regain their health. There might still be more specific, work on their health they need to do, but it still helps them regain their health and stops them losing more of their health simply by focusing on the work. And that is
Yeah.
where we spend, 8 hours a day or
Yeah.
more. If you're an entrepreneur, it's very often more than that, right? And so
Yeah.
it should be joyful. It should make your heart sing. It should be of service. And if it isn't, then do what Zeina did. Look inside. What is it that you want? Do what I did once I got let go, is exactly that. I looked inside. What do I want to do? Was I upset that I got let go? Yeah. Was it hard in the moment? Yeah. The way they handled it was awful. It could have been handled so much better. But I look back at it with gratitude now because it allowed me to have a whole second career that I had never, ever envisioned. Never in a million years had I ever thought I was going to be in health and wellness. But
Yeah.
it's where I've landed, and I've landed in my passion. I've landed in my purpose.
Yeah.
So I
And
love
you
the
have
work that you're doing.
Yeah, and sometimes the thing is too, like especially when we're put in these positions and we didn't take that step, because most of us don't, like, we're waiting for the perfect time and the perfect opportunity to take that leap, if we even have the knowledge of, okay, I'm considering going here. But it's like a little kid learning to swim and to jump into the pool, right? They're so hesitant to jump in. Some people will just jump in, no fear, but for the majority of us, we're really scared. Is the water cold? Will I sink or swim? Is it, how deep is it? We have all these questions. And by the time we come to make, a decision, maybe those opportunities have passed us by. Like we can't do it anymore, whether it's a job or a partner or whatever it is in life. You have to understand that there's not going to be a perfect time or an ideal situation. It's pretty rare. So you might as well just act on it. Plus, life is so short, and the things like we're talking about today with being, almost ejected from a job situation, people getting laid off and all of this stuff. Like, think about what didn't work out for you. You may not note it in the moment, but it's genuinely working out for you. And you'll be able to see that, like you just reflected on, you'll be able to see that, further down the road. But try to think of what are the lessons that you needed to learn from those experiences, and how can you leverage that and propel yourself forward? Because many times, especially in the job market, we're so like just focused on our end goals. We want to get a promotion, we want to move up, and we're doing anything and everything. Like we're just blinded, and just looking forward. We're not looking at the other opportunities and people and experiences along the way. And the only way that you're able to see them sometimes is to get rock bottom, to have everything like that safety and security net taken away from you, in order for you kind of to get quiet and really reassess, like, okay, well, I don't have that anymore. So now what? Sometimes we really have to be robbed of everything because there is so much noise, in order for our minds and bodies to get quiet and really kind of reassess, okay, what am I even doing here? Like what direction do I want to go in now?
I totally agree with all of that. And while it might not feel good when you're in it,
Yeah.
when you come through the other side, it feels amazing
Yeah.
because you have that clarity of understanding of why you've gone through everything that you've gone through.
Yeah.
And so you can make that happen so much more quickly by taking the direct line of saying, you know what, I'm just going to jump into the pool and I'm going to go for it, knowing that's what I need to do for me, for my health, for my sanity, for, my family, for whatever it is, versus holding on for dear life for as long as you can. And it just takes so much longer. And then having a coach like you to help support someone through it just makes it all so much easier. So I have a question for you. I don't know if you're going to know the answer, but I'm just wondering if you know the stats on how many people are, you know, disengaged in their work and unhappy in their work. Do you know that current stat by any chance?
Oh God. I mean, I'm sure it changes all the time, but I feel like I posted it maybe on my LinkedIn, or at least engaged with a post on it from an official stat. I mean, it's high. It's interesting too, because I feel like so many people within the space, you would talk to them and they have no idea. There's some people, I mean, we have so much feedback, right? From the environment and from the news of all of these people are being laid off and all of this and that. But it's very interesting, how tone deaf a lot of companies are when it comes to that. When it comes to employee feedback, like a good example is having workers return to the office, and how many times those conversations were had, and watching. I mean, I'm here in Austin watching all these commercial spaces get built up. And just in my mind, I'm thinking like, I wonder how many people are actually going back, planning on going back to these offices for jobs that they could easily do remotely. Like, what is the thinking for these companies? If they truly believe that their employees are going to move back, like, what are they listening to? Like, where are they getting this information? I think many people, if they're not, if they haven't been laid off, if they haven't, because while obviously the people who are laid off are impacted, the people who are staying, who haven't been laid off, are also severely impacted, right? Like, if you had a team of 10 people, everyone was wiped out except you. That's also equally traumatic. They're traumatic in different ways, right? Because now not only do you have no team, you're taking on every, 9 other roles, and then your job and your environment and everything is shaken, but you're still forced to stay. So it's like, now what do you do? Like, so there's a lot to be said on either side of all of these changes. There's never a comparison of what's worse, right? Everyone's experience is very unique, and how we react and how we digest this information in our experiences. But I would say a lot more people, we'll just say a lot more people than you would think. I would say it's much higher than the stats provide, right? Because stats is based on what people are actually vocalizing. Many people will not vocalize how they really feel, within the space. If there's those anonymous surveys that come out from HR or consulting companies, nobody ever answers those, accurately, because they feel like it's a trap. They feel like they know someone's really going to know what that feedback was. So unfortunately, we're not very honest in that space. And we really should be, in order to give that feedback. Like, how else can we change if our feedback isn't, respected and taken in? You don't have to, just because someone says, I don't like this, doesn't mean you have to respond to it, but you have to, as a company, at least be willing to see the feedback from an objective standpoint, because how else are you going to optimize and change with the times?
Exactly. And really, my point in asking that question is because I know it's high, and I don't know exactly what it is. I know I've heard it and multiple times, but is to let people know that they're not alone.
Oh
So,
gosh.
if you're driving to work every morning and commuting and miserable about the fact that you have to now go back to the office or whatever it is, you're not alone. And there's so much that you can do, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to just accept that and feel stuck and feel like that's the only way. And, definitely reach out, because, there's people like Zeina that can help you see another way. Sometimes when we're just seeing it through our own tunnel vision, we feel boxed in. And when you work with somebody who can come at it from the outside, they can open those flaps of the box for you, and they can let you come out and see how much is out there. And don't suffer. The body isn't meant to suffer. You're not meant to suffer. Your work should bring you joy, and you should be excited to get up every day and do it. So
Yeah.
love this conversation. Love the work that you're doing, Zeina. So many people need you right now. And I would love to ask you the question I ask all my guests. What does don't wait for your wake up call mean to you?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, I think to me it's really like, why are we waiting to rock bottom? Why are we waiting until we're the absolute sickest that we could possibly be? in order to take action. I mean, I think most people, or hopefully more people, are waking up to the idea of like, life is short. Why am I in a job that I hate? Why am I in a relationship that's not serving me anymore? Time is free and it's precious. It's easy to, there's no cost to time, but time is something that we never get back, right? So you can reflect back, and do you really want to have regrets on how you spent that time? Like, probably not. You don't want to end up at the end of your life or super sick and then have all these regrets of, well, now I'm so sick, but I wish I should have taken that vacation. I should have spoken to that person. I should have whatever. You don't want to get to that point, right? So there's no better time than now. And there's quite honestly never going to be an ideal time for you to take action. So do what you can to start leaning into your intuition and listening to your body and listening to those thoughts and seeing how you can start getting curious and exploring and attracting more experiences and people into your life that you can have these conversations with, or see how you can make your dreams a reality.
I love that. And you just sharing that reminded me of the book, the 5 Regrets of the Dying.
Yeah.
Right. Just put yourself in that place. If you were on your deathbed, what would your regrets be based on where your life is at now?
Yeah.
And don't have that come to fruition. Know that you have the ability to create the change in your life.
Yeah.
So you have very generously donated a gift to the audience. I would love for you to share that gift and also how the audience can get hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the gift is a free clarity workbook. So if any of this conversation has kind of piqued your interest and you want to get an idea of remind yourself of those things that really used to light you up and what types of things you can start doing more of to get you back to that place of purpose and fulfillment, I have a free clarity workbook on my website. It's crockcoaching.com/freebie. So feel free to go over there and download that and fill that out. And then you can find me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. All of them are at CRock Coaching. It's SEAROCK Coaching. I would love to connect with you. Would love to hear your story. But yeah.
Thank you so much. And as I said, I will put all of that in the show notes as well. And is there any last message you would like to leave with the audience today?
Gosh, I mean, this conversation has been so good. I think the biggest thing is, listen to your body and listen to your intuition. I don't know if you've spoken about this book before, but there's a book that I read a while ago, or I listened to it on Audible, The Body Keeps the Score. Mm-hmm. So if you don't listen to your intuition, you kind of numb and you don't take action, it's going to manifest itself in your body, right? So try as you might to get rid of, to not think of the traumas or the things that have happened to you. It is extremely important to work through those because they will show up inevitably in other ways, in your subconscious and the way you show up in the world and in your body as well. So like I said, like we kind of made the connection today between your job and your body and different diseases that can manifest themselves. But, listen to your body. And that's a key indicator that something is off in some area of your life.
I love that. And it's a really great book. I've read it. It's Bessel van der Kolk that wrote that book, if anybody wants to get that book. So thank you for coming on the show today, Zeina, and sharing all of your wisdom, everything that you're offering, and just letting people know that they don't have to be stuck in a job that they don't like. Yeah. And that sometimes in order to heal ourselves, it does involve changing our career, as was your experience. So thank you so much for sharing that to my audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening every single week. And if you know somebody that needs to hear this episode, please share it with them. If you're enjoying my content and someone that wants to step into being proactive in your health and learning more, I would love to invite you to join my membership community. There's a link in the show notes. For only $19.99 a month, you get access to all of my content, and there's a lot, as well as weekly calls that you can come and get your health questions answered. It's truly priceless. I'd love to see you join the community. Check out the link in the show notes.